it's Thursday, then it's Fishin' and Huntin today. I am your studio producer, Sid Davis, and I have none other than the pleasure of introducing one of the Hall of Famers in the radio game today. That would be none other than Mr. Jerry Cripp himself, along with Mr. Mark, the #1 guy, West Virginia Blue Cat record holder, might I add. And with all that being said tonight, I would like to say hello to you guys and top of the evening to you.
Top of the evening to you. I love those intros, and those are your Mr. Mark, West Virginia Blue Cat guy, Mark Blauvelt, without a doubt. And Mark, I know you're surprised that record's still holds, aren't you?
Well, yeah, it's going on, this would be 5 years, I think. Yeah, 5 years. So, each year it gets closer and closer to being broken, so it's just a matter of time.
I remember 5 years ago because we had you on right after you did that, and I remember you said probably won't last till next year. Guess what? It did, and it still is. And mention to people the size of that fish and what bait you caught that on for everybody so they get an idea. And it was in the Ohio River, correct?
Yeah, so I was actually in a Cabela's King Cat tournament out of Gallipolis, right there in southern Ohio, right along the West Virginia border, right where Kentucky, West Virginia, and Ohio all come together as Gallipolis. Mm-hmm. And actually caught it on a piece of fresh-cut shad, pretty common catfish bait. We were drifting down the river, kind of coming down along the seine, a good area, and he bit, and the rest was history after that.
There you go. And what size was that fish?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, he was right just a hair under 60 pounds. So while bigger blues have been caught in other states, in West Virginia has been stocking blues for about maybe 12 or 15 years. So they were slowly getting bigger and bigger, so that's why it's not huge. In fact, just last weekend, the North Carolina state record was broken with a 124-pounder.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a monster.
Is there a limit now to, and by the way, were you casting or trolling as you drifted with that? Or?
Well, no, we were vertically drifting. So basically, you set rods up with a weight, drop to the bottom, let the boat slowly drift down with the current, and you just try to keep the baits, 1 to 3 feet off the bottom, or put it right in their nose, just like a natural bait would be fluttering down the river.
Mm-hmm. What is the biggest one that you've ever heard being caught? Because apparently these things can grow to pick a number. I mean, my God, is there a limit? I don't know.
Well, yeah. So let's see. The world record I think is 144 pounds, and in South Carolina about 2 years ago, somebody caught a 141 pounder.
Wow.
So the world record is there to be broke.
No doubt.
There are a handful of places in the country where that could still happen. The Mississippi River, the Missouri River, possibly on the Tennessee River chain, and a few lakes in South Carolina and North Carolina. Probably would be your best bets.
They're growing big in the South. I not only cats, but big bass, that's for sure.
Everything, yeah. Longer growing season.
Yep.
Lots more bait. If you ever fish down south, the amount of bait is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering too, with pick a species, but with fishing southern waters, with fish in southern waters, it almost seems to me like it's an ever-ending spawn, and I don't mean they're all spawning all the time. I mean it's like stage spawns, isn't it? I mean it seems like it goes on almost year-round.
It seems like it because, like this, what will happen is, you have early fish come in, and over 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks before the last fish come in. I'll give you an example. I was fishing up on Sandusky Bay, which is a top channel cat fishery, one of the top 5 in the country right now. Because a lot of those channel cats come into Sandusky Bay to spawn. I was just up there last weekend getting some photos for a online magazine I'm writing an article for. But, up there it's amazing because most people would say, oh, the spawn is pretty much done. However, I caught like a 14-pound channel that was spewing eggs. I mean, just when I pulled it out of the net, I mean, just eggs just falling out of her. I just unhooked her as quick as possible and put her back right in the water. And, so you never know. Fish do have the ability to reabsorb eggs. So let's say, and this is common here in Ohio, maybe with crappies, where it starts to warm up. Fish start to move shallow, and then they start to make a nest, and then it gets cold, get a cold front, and maybe it snows. Who knows around here? And so they come and go. They start staging back and forth, and at some point, they will have to drop their eggs no matter what. But there are some fish that do not, and which is why in July you may catch a crappie and clean it and say, well, it looks like it's got eggs in it. That doesn't make any sense. So, all fish have that through Mother Nature, where if it's not a good year for the spawn, they'll just save it, and instead of wasting all that protein, they'll reabsorb it back into the body.
Just another way, Mark, that Mother Nature makes sure that the species lives on,
Absolutely.
It's amazing nature. It truly, truly is. Take your pick, what part of nature it may be, whether it be four-legged game or finned fish, game fish, or whatever the species. I mean,
Absolutely.
it is truly amazing. And what about that Sandusky Bay? That is one heck of a fishery up there. I don't care what fishers. It's a great bass largemouth now in there that a lot of people don't realize.
Crappies. I mean, it's a huge bay. What people don't realize is, Sandusky Bay is very recreationalized. So there's a lot of houses. There's several ramps. It's bordered by some of the wildlife areas, so it's very wild. But what people don't realize is you have the Portage River has a large bay. You have Maumee River has a huge bay that is all industrialized, and there's not really a public ramp there. So a lot of bass guys make the run to get in there, because it's fairly untapped. Again, anytime you have those bays are all on the southwest side of Lake Erie, so you always have to watch the winds. If you have a north wind or a northeast wind, that can be some real trouble in there. You can have some 6-7 foot waves, and you can get into trouble quick, especially if you have to go back out into the lake to get back to your ramp.
That's a good point. A lot of people use that bay to fish when the big lake is rough. But that's a good point, that you do have to watch wind direction in there, because you can get just as rough in that bay as you can out on the big lake.
Yeah. And people always tell stories about how rough Lake Erie can get. When you're 30 minutes from the shoreline, and waves or storms are blowing quick, 30 minutes, storms will beat you before you can get to the shoreline. And that's where the problem comes in.
I've learned lessons up there on that water. That's for sure. I've been out there when the Coast Guard's been out there blowing people off. I'm sure you've seen them up there too. Get off the water. And there we were out there one time. Remember those old fish baskets that you put fish in?
Oh, yeah.
Had one of them wrapped up in the propeller on the damn motor. And a storm coming in. I thought, well, now this is not going to fare well. But finally we got that thing out of there and did barely beat it. Well, we got torrential downpour, but barely beat it back in before it really got rough. But see, that's such a shallow lake. It doesn't take a lot to really make that thing.
No.
Then you got people out there in their flat bottom bass boats and those come up. That's not a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen people
better be
bailing
careful.
water.
Yeah.
I've seen people mark bailing water, but that's interesting too about Sandusky Bay, and I just heard that from somebody else recently, and I think it was Mike Patterson from Mike Patterson Sport Fishing that had mentioned how good of a catfish fishery there's going on in Sandusky Bay, the top 5 in the country.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow.
Lots of bigger fish. Anybody that spends much time walleye fishing on Lake Erie will be like, oh, doggone it, man. I'm catching sheep's head and I'm catching big channel catfish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're looking for walleye, that's no good. But
That's good.
So what happens is Sandusky Bay has a railroad bridge, the old Route 2 bridge, and the new Route 2 bridge. So there are miles of huge riprap.
Yep.
Big chunk rock, 3, 4, 5 foot around, and channel cats are cavernous spawners, which means they want to get under a log, they want to get into a nook under a rock. That's why many times when you catch them, their heads are all scarred up where they're trying to dig a nest out under a rock.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, they're, I'm sure a third of the channel catfish in Lake Erie probably spawn in Sandusky Bay.
Wow.
It's just an amazing, you can catch 100 fish days once you locate where they're at.
Well, that old Bay Bridge there in Sandusky Bay with all the rocks, that used to be a popular place where people poke off the rocks.
Yep, the shore people cast out there, and they're shoulder to shoulder in the spring, and May and early June is a good time, and those fish are in there crazy. Now, they had just left those rocks, but we were still catching them kind of in the deep water between the bridges.
Is that boat dealer still there in the bay, Mark? Do you know?
I'm sorry, is what there?
There was a boat dealer there in the bay. Is
boat dealer.
Is he still there?
Yeah, there's I always use the Clemens ramp, which is kind of right between the railroad bridge, and it's in Bayview.
Okay.
And you can rent pontoons there, actually. It's kind of a marina there.
That's what I think it was, because I think that's where we had put in. We had some boat repairs to do, and we had them done there. Well, we were waiting, because fishing off the dock, they were waiting for whatever was being done, catch some of the biggest crappie I've ever seen. And that's right there.
There are some monsters in there, yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Well, just last weekend, there were some guys on shore. They had caught a handful of catfish. They were tight line and minnows, and they had caught some sheephead, and they had 2 perch, probably 11 and a half inches. Nice perch.
Perfect perch.
Perch. Yeah.
A little bit of issues with that perch fishery going on in Lake Erie now, but that's a story for a different time. But it's starting to show up a little bit in the Western Basin now, too, and there's some concern up there. So it'll be interesting to see when they set the new quotas for next year with commercial fishing, because Canada commercial fishes perch out of the Western Basin.
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see what kind of quotas we see next year. But there's cause for alarm now. When you have alarm, that's a step above concern about perch populations. Then I think your ears need to perk up and listen to see a little bit of what's going on up there. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens up there with that. But that western basin of Lake Erie, that is truly the game fish incubator of the Great Lakes. It's unbelievable.
It is. Yeah, it's, every species. You can go into East Harbor, you catch bowfin, you can catch pike, you can catch huge bluegills, crappies. Everything there is there.
Nice bass fishery. Really, you can go out a couple hours and you're going to catch a good number of 2-3 pound largemouth.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's just a fantastic fishery for sure. And the lake trout that they introduced into, I think, Central Basin, now Steve Quinn within Fishermen was telling me they're seeing some of that migration of that lake trout. Or no, it was our guy that's in charge of our hatcheries here in Ohio had mentioned it to me.
Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin. That we're seeing. He's retiring, by the way. You probably knew that.
Yeah.
But we're seeing some of those lake trout migrate into the western basin already.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
And to me, that's what I said to him. I said, "Are they going to?" Because there's again, that's the shallowest of the three basins up there. Are they going to survive? Because that's a cold water fish. Are they going to survive in that part of the lake? And he seems to think they probably can. So, it's a kind of place to fish, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting. I wish I was closer. I'm here in Dayton, so it's a little over 3 hours for me. I wish I was closer.
Yeah, it's true. Good point. And with gas going back the way it's going the wrong way, that's not fun to be pulling a boat and then having to fuel your boat and everything else. It's not fun, that's for sure. I'm assuming, did you know that they're striped? They just started, I think it's the second year of stocking hybrid stripers right there in downtown Dayton in the Great Miami?
Yeah, they tend to move a lot with the current. So I know several people who've caught them over the years. Some nice ones. So they're around, and I'm not sure where they originally were coming from, but there's certainly a handful of them around. And if if you're bass fishing and you hit a 4 or 5 pound hybrid striper, you'll know it. You think you got a 10-pounder on.
That's like the guys in the springtime bass fishing over at Caesars with spinner baits and hook into a muskie.
Oh yeah.
They finally realize this is not a bass after they start seeing a little bit of that fish as it gets closer to the boat. Yeah, that's pretty neat to do. But they started that program. I think, this was the second year for it with the stocking of the hybrids in there, and they're planning on continuing that. So I think it's a good idea. I think the Great Miami is really a underused fishery in that stretch of the river. It could be a problem with public access. But
people are always concerned about where to park because it's safe and things like that. But I do a lot of wading, so I'll get in the river. I'm not worried about anybody bothering me once I'm in the river.
Right.
But
that's a river tone. I know one. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Are you fly riding when you're in the river?
I love to spin fish for smallmouth, and you probably know from my past history, my past life. For about 20 years, I was a fly fishing guide on the Mad River there, and was over the Trout Unlimited chapter up there, the Madmen.
Very, very familiar chapter, no doubt about that. Been around a while. Is it still there, Mark?
Absolutely, yeah.
Are you still a member?
I'm a member. I'm not as active because I've kind of just moved on and changed gears. I still fully support them, absolutely, but just switched gears from trout to catfish.
Well, but if you're a fly rodder, and once a fly rodder, always a fly rodder. This time of year right now, I think it's one of the best times to fly fish because you pick a dry fly and you don't have to match the hatch to fly a dry fly on. If you got insect activity, you're going to pretty well get a hit on that dry fly about every cast, aren't you? It's unreal.
Well, sometimes they get pretty picky.
I know.
You'll learn the word frustration when they're hitting everything except your fly.
Good point. But I do know one thing: when the bugs stop, the bite stops. There's no question of that.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a good time to do it. But that fishery up there, that brown trout fishery up there, is another success story here in Ohio, and
yes.
And I don't know when they decided that brown was a better stocking fish than the rainbow, but they grow good and they can put up with some pretty nasty conditions, and it's a nice fish to catch. There's no question.
Yeah. Yep.
How did you keep your? Was that fish too big to do a fiberglass on with the West Virginia, or did you do one?
I have thought about doing one for years.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 years ago, nobody had really done a big blue catfish.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple people I had found that were like down in Arkansas that had done them and were able to do some stuff, but man, it was pricey. So I was like, one of these days I'll do it. And I still haven't. Now there are probably a dozen different taxidermists that have experience doing blue cats and have done some beautiful works for different people, different states. So it's still something kind of sitting on my back burner. It's, it's like doing the roof on your house. It's like, it needs to be done, but I keep putting it off, right?
Oh, I've got some of that Gorilla Glue or whatever. Let me go try that. I know where you're coming from. I know. Out in the country, sometimes the winds blow. You got a two-story house, and you might lose a shingle or two. And I know what your thoughts are. And that can be put into the same thing with doing a reproduction on a fish, for sure.
Yeah.
Mark, we'll take our little quick weather break, and Sydney, let's do that little NBA update for everybody. And we'll come back on the other side. We'll get back with lots more here with Mark Blauvelt, West Virginia blue cat record holder. More with Mark right after this.
Well, this is your fishing and hunting today update. If currently you're in the Midwest, you may be feeling a little hot, 83 degrees to be exact right now, sunny at this time of the day. If you're in the East Coast, same as well, 83 degrees. We're going to keep it around the Midwest region today, if you guys didn't mind. At this point of time, I would just like to say, you could have been anywhere in the world. You could have been in any city in the world. And you chose to listen to Fishing and Hunting today. And we appreciate that. And then I'd also like to touch on some sports. Currently, right now, we have an NBA series that is tied 2-2. And with that being said, we may have a barn burner tomorrow. It seems that these guys just can't put each other away. Yesterday's final was the Suns lost 103-109, Bucks up. Now they were winning the series at first, 2-1. But I really can't explain to you what's happened other than that I'm noticing that if you're into the days that I was into where there was a guy named Kobe Bryant, just some great NBA player, and another guy that was his teammate named Shaquille O'Neal, what they've done is the first couple of games, now this guy is almost a 7-footer. This Giannis gentleman. What happened is the first two games, the Suns the point guard had like 41 points. But something happened with the coaching staff, and they said, you know what? Even though our guard for the Bucks is almost 7 feet, maybe we should put him at the center position and see if he still can score 30 and 40 points a game. And that's exactly what happened, because now the Suns have no answer for all these young guys on the Bucks that are scoring at will. And now that you've put your guard as the center, they have no answer for that currently. So this will be interesting to see what they do tomorrow. But yeah, currently right now the series is tied 2-2. And I think we all should be watching, because this may go to Game 7. And this matchup has really come to life as we speak. So everyone's wide awake now if you're into basketball. And this will be it for us on pretty much the Fishing and Hunting Today sports update. Now it's back to you guys.
Thanks, Sidney, for that update. Baseball wars get back underway Friday. Reds and Central National are 4 behind the Brewers, and guess what? They got a 3-game series here in Cincinnati beginning Friday with the Brewers, but we got some weather It looks like rain every one of those days, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. That series that Sidney mentioned with the NBA Finals, that they got a travel day in there too, and I think that takes back up Saturday. And then they've got one more game. It's either tomorrow or Saturday, and then there's one, I think, Sunday or Monday, and then back, if there is, a 7th, I think that goes back to Milwaukee, so that's going to be interesting. No question about it, for sure. Want to mention before we get to Mark, federal premium, you're looking for ammo. I'm telling you, if you find what you're looking for, if there's no limit as to the amount that you can get, you might want to go ahead and get a little extra, because this ammo shortage does not look that it's going to end anytime soon, and it's well into the shotgun loads now, too. Talked with Jared Wickman, Pheasants Forever, and this is up in Minnesota. He was in a Cabela's up in Minnesota. The only thing you can find up there, ammo-wise, shotgun-wise, was some 10-gauge stuff, and that was about it. So if you find it, you better get it, and it's going to affect hunting seasons, I'm telling you. We've got dove season and all of our other September 1st seasons right around the corner. And you're going to have some people that may find that they don't have any ammo to go hunting with, and we hope that doesn't happen, that's for sure. But if you find it, better get it. If you're going to get it, get the best. That's Federal Premium, a complete line of upland ammo, dove loads, turkey loads, waterfowl loads, pheasant loads, picket, they've got it. And anything you need for the range, and nothing any better than the gold medal line for target. All of it, shoot off and shoot lots, shoot Federal Premium. Back with Mark Blauvelt, talking with Mark about what other, the catfish. Well, we threw in some trout and some bass and some other species and perch, and want to get more into the catfishing part of it. And Mark, your tournament schedule, needless to say, 2020, how was the tournament schedule in 2020? Was it none, or was there some?
Yeah, there was some, the big tournaments typically run down south in like Arkansas, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. They usually start in January. Sure, it's still cold down there, but it's still a good fishery. And then it slowly works its way north. So there was a handful of bigger tournaments were run, and then, when COVID started picking up, things slowly started getting postponed, or there was a lot of uncertainty whether a big tournament was going to go or not. They were waiting to see, and then they canceled last minute or postpone. And so, that was, last year was pretty sketchy in that regard. This year, things are getting much back to normal. So that's good. So a lot of the blue catfish, which is the major target for a lot of the tournament trails, the blue catfish are just coming off spawn. So typically in June and the first half of July, there's no big tournaments. And so here next weekend, I'll actually be in Caruthersville on the Missouri on the Mississippi for a large national tournament, and then they'll start ramping back up. I have another one in Alton, which is at St. Louis, another one in Memphis, and then I'll have a few down in Alabama to finish out the year. So so it's a good time, but it seems like we're over the hump now, so that's good.
Absolutely. And then you hear, like, we're back into seeing some closures now here in Ohio, group things, like I heard just today, Boy Scout camp in Camden, Ohio, closed because of an outbreak. And then up Montgomery County way, about a church get-together at a camp up there. They had, I think out of, 700 people, they had 70 confirmed cases already. And
something there. Like that,
Now we've got California. Now we've got to remember now, California, the land of, would be nice and say a land of fruit and nuts. I guess we can say that. Can't we say?
Yeah, I think so.
But now we're the Los Angeles County, effective midnight tomorrow night, mandatory, vaccinated or not, back into the masks for everybody indoors, anywhere, anytime. So, Are we going to see another big outbreak of this? Who knows? Who knows? Certainly it's not going to go away quietly, I guess we could say that. And
Right.
lots to get into about that, but we aren't going to do that here, that's for sure. But tournaments coming up. It sounds like Mississippi River is a favorite spot for catfish tournaments. Is it?
It is. It is. The last several years, I've done pretty good on some of those tournaments, and so this year I picked 3 or 4 large tournaments to try to focus my efforts there to learn that fishery a little better. Every watershed, every body of water is completely different. This Saturday I'll be up at St. Mary's, which is a shallow lake, and it's a whole different animal there than, say, at Caesars Creek, which is a deep lake. So, the more time I spend, the more I learn, and that's what it's all about to me. It's not. I just enjoy the challenge of different waters and learning something in different parts of the country and bringing it back here and trying to incorporate them here. And to me, that's what I enjoy doing, being a multi-species angler. I bring a lot of my trolling from my walleye and Lake Erie guy friends, and I bring that into catfishing. So, we often troll for catfish all the time. I mean, anybody that's trolled a flicker ad looking for walleye or saw guys will, can probably tell you about a time at 2.5 miles an hour you caught a 10-inch channel cat that hit a crankbait.
They will.
They will, yes.
Oh, absolutely will. There's no question about that. In fact, I think people in the springtime, I may be wrong, you would know a heck of a lot better than I, but it doesn't surprise me that some people are actually, when they're doing some catfishing, using crankbaits to fish for catfish.
Yeah, you can do it. I mean, every crappie angler's caught a channel catfish, because they're in there on the banks getting ready to spawn, just like the crappies. So if the timing is right, all you have to do is get baits out there to them, even if it's a hard bait or a rattle. So everyone knows catfish has whiskers and has sensory glands on them to be able to smell scents for miles. But not only that, I mean, let's face it, the catfish has eyes. If he sees a bait, he'll zero in on it. If he can, like a bass, he has a lateral line. If there's a thump or a rattle in a crankbait and he can zone in on that, he will do that as well. So whether it be smell, taste, sight, or the vibration, any of those, you're apt to catch catfish with that.
Well, the other thing, too, I think those channel cats, there's nothing better about than that 2-pound size for the dinner table. That works out pretty well, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yep, absolutely.
No question about that. Hush puppies, some cold salt, cold beer, and you're not going to get much better than that, that's for sure. People enjoy it, and it's good for you, too. I mean, you don't have to worry about anything in it. That's good for you. That's nature's food. The game that you hunt and the fish that you catch. Can't get any better. Tournament coming up. You've got that one coming up. You're going to wrap up the year in Alabama. What's the fishery you wrap up in Alabama?
That'll be down on Wheeler Lake or Wilson Lake.
Okay.
Down there on the Tennessee River. So that whole chain from Watts Bar, Chickamauga, down to Nickajack, and then Gunnersville, then Wheeler, then Wilson, then Pickwick is all world-class blue cat fishery, and some very big flatheads as well.
Needless to say, catfishing very popular down that way, isn't it?
Oh yeah, catfishing has boomed in the last 10 years. It's just crazy how many people are doing tournaments now. I will tell you that as an old timer, I started tournaments in 2003 for catfish, and I actually founded the Southwest Ohio Catfish Club, which is still an active tournament club that fishes along the Ohio River in Southwest Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Back in those days, everybody just showed up and you fished. So I can go to a club tournament, and I guarantee you there's 3 or 4 people there that have pre-fished every day this week trying to find fish. It sure makes it a whole lot harder to do well, because the days of just showing up and fishing and the best guy who figures it out on that day wins, those days are long gone. Way many people have infinite time, infinite money, and they're able to do that. So, for example, I'll be at this tournament next weekend. There's already people there pre-fishing. They were out there today pre-fishing, a full week ahead of time. So, with the pandemic, I was just going to say, a lot of people have gotten into boating and fishing, and maybe people didn't their jobs were cut back or the hours were cut back. They have a lot more time. They can get outside. So there's a lot of people out doing it everywhere, all types of fishing, and it's good for the industry. But boy, it sure stinks when you're trying to buy tackle.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, and we'll mention that before we go here. We're going to say the equipment segment for later, and I want you to mention just what kind of a challenge that is now, because apparently it's more than I think. In fact, I didn't know it was that big of a challenge right now for that part of it, but we will definitely talk about that. And I want to ask you too, now with your tournaments, it's 2-man boat that you fish?
Typically, 2-man, or a lot of the tournaments will allow 3 people, but the rod limit is for 2. So if I put a third person in the boat here in Ohio, you're allowed 2 rods inland. So, you'd have a 4-rod limit, but I could have 3 people. And they're trying to encourage, maybe grandparents or children or, to keep the sport rolling. And that's the whole key. So, many people fish with their wives, or, a father and son combo, or an adult son and his elderly father. Everything is out there.
So it's family friendly.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it gets pretty competitive, but it's family friendly.
Competitive in a friendly way.
Yes.
We're not out there doing for $100,000 and that type of deal. So that's a good thing. And what is your average entry fees for your events that you run?
So here locally, like what I would consider local club events, typically it's $60 to get in, and that's 2 guys. So usually it's $10 a boat goes to big fish, and then the $50 is like, pretty common. It would be like, $25, $15, and $10, split up for the first 3 places or something like that. Now, as you get up to the bigger national level tournaments, you might pay $300 a team, $500. We did one last year for $600. So,
and what is? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say. So obviously, the more entry fee, the more prize money you have. So, but at the same time, you're going to pull the best anglers from the country. So, it's just hard. You really have to make that commitment to get there a few days ahead of time and really try to put your best effort into those events where you have a lot more money on the line.
Is there a way that you had mentioned the pre-fishing and people are there? Is there a way that they can limit the pre-fishing before an event, or do they not want to do that?
A lot of times they'll just say you can't fish the day before or 2 days before, but it's not like the national bass tournaments where none of these guys have jobs that are doing it full time. I mean, they're. Let's face it, you go all week, you pre-fish Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and, you can't fish Thursday, Friday, and the tournament Saturday. So, but in the catfish world, the problem is so many people are still traveling so far and still have jobs. So it's hard to get me to go drive 10 hours and then tell me I can't fish for 2 days.
That's a good point.
So, it's hard to pull people to do that. So, yeah.
You're gonna want to get on the water. That's for sure. You don't want to sit there for 2 days. I mean, sitting in the motel room playing cards gets old pretty damn quick, doesn't it? That's for damn sure. Without a doubt, that gets old quick. And the average first place win for a local event would be about how much, and how much for an average first place win on a national event?
Well, yeah. So at the club level, you might have 25 boats. Mm-hmm. So, it might be 700 split, 700, 400, 200, maybe 100 if, something like that. At the national level, there's many times in that $10,000 to probably $25,000 range.
Good.
You're going to split it 2 ways, and then Uncle Sam gets a piece. So
always there in his little outfit with his hand out, isn't he?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, right. I know how that goes. Immediately open and set up a foundation. You can beat a lot of those taxes that way.
Yeah.
The Mark Blauvelt Catfish Foundation for whatever, and you can do some of that. That works. I think a lot of people do it too. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
So tournaments, you're going to, and your last one in Alabama wraps up what, October, November?
Oh no, it'll be over New Year's.
Oh, okay. You say you go all along.
Yeah. It's a year-round fishery. Yeah.
Year-round.
You just typically have to move more further south.
Okay.
To do that.
Well, let's talk a little bit now for a couple minutes about our blue cats here in Ohio. The Hoover deal up in Columbus. I guess we can safely say your thoughts. I mean, we're on a slot limit up there now.
Well, yes.
Nice
so
fish being caught.
So one of my buddies up there who lives up there and fishes a lot, he just got one just over 40 pounds. So there's a lot in that 20 to 30 pound range. There's a lot of fish in there. This is the 10th year. So when the state first starts, they put a lot of fish in those first couple of years. And so there's a big wave of fish from 20 to 30 pounds. They are there. They're getting fished very heavily, and there's some concerns about that, but a lot of those fish are being caught and released multiple times.
That's not good.
Well, yeah, I mean, so Hoover is kind of a unique fishery. It's pretty deep, and it kind of is sectioned into 3 sections. So a lot of people like the spring, and boy, they beat on the upper end where a lot of those fish are. So, but after the spring, like right now, after spawn, they're like, I can't find them. I don't know where they're at. Well, then you gotta work for them. And blue cats can travel 20, 30 miles a day. I mean, they're always moving to feed. They're big river fish. They're in the Mississippi, the Missouri, the Ohio River. So they're used to just constantly moving, looking for schools of fish to eat.
Now they can lose, I'm assuming, some of those fish up there out of that reservoir, can't they? Or is there no way for them out?
Well, so if you remember the very first year, they put some in Hoover and they put some in Dillon. So Dillon is a rollover dam, sort of like Rocky Fork or Acton. It's not a flood control lake, so basically when the water comes up, just like muskies and Cowan, for example, they no longer put them there because those fish are migratory and they tend to move downriver. So if a lot of water is coming over the dam and they cannot trap them, they lose them. So blue cats fall into that category. So now they're stocking them in lakes that have what they call screens on the overflows.
Okay.
So, for example, Caesars Creek has screens, which is why you don't see lots of muskies in the tailwater, right? Big fish can't get through the screens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they, for example, just put blue cats. This is what the third year, I believe they put them in Caesar's Creek.
Okay. It's been a long time at Caesar's with the muskie program. I know, and the blue cat is what, about 3 years, you think, or is it more?
About 3 years, and so we're starting to catch some fish right around 1 3/4 pounds, 2 pounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The state of Ohio did put about 130 brood stock in, so those were 5 to 20 pounders.
Okay.
So the 120 fish is not a lot in a lake the size of Caesar's Creek, but you could always catch one. So,
what are your thoughts with Caesar's for blue cats? You think it's a good choice?
I think it is a good choice. They will be difficult to target there because with the pleasure boaters running the main channel nonstop, that's where those fish will be keyed on outside of the spring. So outside of the spring, they're going to be hard to locate with regularity, which is going to help them get bigger because they won't have the pressure that they're getting at Hoover. Hoover is a 9.9 lake, so and Hoover's a little easier to target them. But at Caesar's Creek, there'll be a handful of us. Hopefully, I'll be one of them that can figure out and pattern them and be able to find them most of the times of the year.
Well, that's a good point you bring up about pleasure boats over there at Caesars. There doesn't seem to even be a relaxed day during the week anymore. There's a lot of that going on that lake, isn't there?
Yeah, it's crazy over there.
I'm telling you. I mean, it just is not. There's not some places you could figure, well, Tuesday and Wednesday it's not quite as bad, or it's not bad at all. You target those days, but you can't really do that.
Not in the summer. Yeah. Brookville Lake, same way. Allen Creek. Yeah. They're all just crazy.
How is Brookville over in Indiana for catfishing?
Actually, Brookville has some very large flatheads, if you can find them. Not lots, but when you get one, they're good ones. And there are lots of channel cats over there. It's an excellent channel cat fishery. A lot of fish from 1.5 to 4 pounds, and they get up to 10 or 12 pounds over there, which is anything over 10 pounds is a trophy channel catfish about anywhere.
Another one of those 1970 core lakes. Boy, they all pretty well mirror each other, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like when they said we're going to do this core lake, we might as well do 5 or 6 of them.
Well, in Brookville, actually, the dam at Caesar's Creek was modeled after the one at Brookville.
There you go.
So it's very similar in fashion.
Deepest lake in Ohio is 110 feet at the dam at Caesar's.
Yep.
That's it. That's our deepest lake in the state. How about some tips or techniques for our summertime catfishers? What do you think a good tip or technique and maybe a bait or two?
Yeah, so right now, channel catfish, which are pretty much in every park pond, every river, every lake in Ohio. It's the most common catfish. Has a forked tail, has a silver body, black spots on it when it's smaller. They're just getting done spawning, so at this point they're pretty much back to all over the whole lake. So if you were going to go out, you could just cast baits out off a point, cast points, in a river. You could certainly catch channel catfish at any time of day. They feed as active during the day as they do at night. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a myth that you have to catch catfish at night. Now, if I was fishing for flatheads, I would target night fishing with live bait, like live bluegills. Okay. But for channel catfish, heck, all my tournaments are always almost all during the day. I'm too old for those night tournaments. That's too rough for me. Channel cats all day. Blue cats will feed all day. They both will feed at night. And flatheads will feed during the day, but primarily dusk, dawn, low light. Like a rainy day is always a good day. Where it's cloudy and overcast. You can always catch those fish. I would say for channel catfish, some of the best bait to use is going to be like either minnows, chubs, shad, or bluegills. So if you catch them, you can cut them into pieces fresh. That's going to be your best. If you cannot get those, a lot of people use shrimp. Go to Kroger's, buy a bag of whole shrimp, and they'll put them on. Shrimp have a smell like a crayfish, so that's kind of where that comes from. It's a shellfish, so that works well. I mean, you can catch channel catfish on soap, or you can catch them on night crawlers. You catch them on hot dogs. Anything that has any odor at all, you could catch channel catfish on. Is something. Stink baits, any of those all work well. When I'm tournament fishing, I almost exclusively try to cast net fresh shad, and I will, keep them alive until I'm ready to use them. And when I cut them, I mean, the blood is fresh, and, I'll put them on the hook right then. Okay. I mean, that's probably the best thing. So, here locally, in all the local lakes, I mean, shad is king because that's what they're eating. They eat the shad, as everything eats the shad. When I get down the Ohio River, I use a lot of shad, but I also start using skipjack, which is a freshwater herring that is found in the Ohio River. If I catch a carp or a sucker, I'll cut them up and use them for bait. All of the, any type of fresh cut bait is always going to be good. I always freeze shad so that I have some. I'll take some with me Saturday just in case I can't find any. I'll have some.
Well, and you hear that cut bait is really a good bait for catfish, and fresh cut bait naturally is going to be even better, that's for sure. How about scents, Mark? Like, we have to spray on scents. Do you use any of those kind of scents on any of your baits?
I do not, but I know some people who do.
Okay.
So, they swear by it. I swear by the natural smell because that's what they eat every day. It's just one of those things. Everybody's got their secret little weapon, their secret little bait that, nobody else uses, whatever. You get into carp guys, and they use strawberry jello in their Wheaties and, try to come up with something unique. And there are times when, other things will outfish the shad, but day in and day out, I find it hard to believe that a feeding fish is going to pass it up.
Good point. Keep it natural. Keep it on what they're looking to feed on, which they feed on, like you said, daily. And you pretty well, I think, in most cases, you're going to up your odds that you're going to have a pretty good day on the water. Catching some catfish, that's for sure. And limits, I don't know, do we have here in Ohio a limit on the number of channel catch you can bag in a day, or is there none? Or?
Well, there is. So in the smaller state lakes, anything less than 700 acres, the state of Ohio is still stocking channel catfish. Okay. So in those smaller state lakes, the limit is 6 channel catfish a day, and only one of those is allowed to be over 28 inches. That's a trophy regulation. Now, let's say you go to Caesars Creek or Alum Creek or East Fork or, these bigger lakes that are over 700 acres. Then the limit is unlimited, but you're still only allowed 1 per person over 28 inches. So, again, it's a trophy regulation. They're trying to protect bigger fish.
Yep.
So they're like, hey, if you catch a fish of a lifetime and you want to take 1, that's fine per person.
Yep.
Over the 28 inches, which is typically anywhere from an 8 to 11-pound fish, depending on, is it a long, skinny male or is it a short, stocky female in pre-spawn?
So what they're doing is managing a little bit for trophy fishing, a little trophy management going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a good idea, no question.
Yeah, let me also add, for blue catfish in Ohio, you're allowed one blue catfish per person over 35 inches. Same with flathead. One flathead per person over 35 inches. So, again, Ohio has adopted these trophy, regulations, which is a great thing that helps. Obviously, enforcement becomes an issue at times, but, at least those rules are on the books.
You can still go to Kentucky in the Ohio River and all you want to take home and put in a prey pond?
Boy. With a Kentucky license, there's hardly any regulations, and so Ohio does not allow commercial fishing for catfish on the Ohio River. However, Kentucky owns about 90% of the river, and they do allow commercial fishing. So, a lot of people like fishing these pay lakes, and I can understand that. The problem with pay lakes is that pay lakes have now become trophy pay lakes. So with that being said, all those big fish are netted out of, our natural resources, the Ohio River, and then they put them in these little ponds, and they ultimately will starve to death. There's a reason why people catch them on WD-40 sprayed on a bar of soap. It's because, they're hungry.
Sure.
And so, that becomes an issue. If there were pay lakes for muskies or bass, it wouldn't happen. because people would be netting them out of Caesars Creek to put them in their private pond, and people would be like, "Well, that's not right. That's the public resource." But in this case, the commercial fishing has, it has changed from taking little fish to make dog food and meals, for food consumption, to now, the bigger the fish, the more money they can get for it because of the market that's out there.
And that's not going to change anytime soon with Kentucky.
Probably not, no.
I don't see any.
No, but it certainly makes the fishing very tough along the Ohio River. You notice I talk about fishing the Tennessee River, the Mississippi, and the Missouri River because, there's more protection in those states. In fact, I think the last two times I fished the Ohio River, and this is no lie, me and one of my tournament buddies, we didn't catch a fish on either trip, and we had one bite in the last two trips.
Wow.
All day. So that's what I tell you, that, they're just not there, and it's a shame because 20 years ago when I started, it was nothing to catch 20, 30, and 40 pounders all the time on the Ohio River. But now that's a rare trophy. In fact, in the last couple of years, I think the biggest fish I caught was like 22 pounds. So they are out there. Don't get me wrong, but you have to work for them.
Yeah, and you can do better elsewhere instead of going down on the river for 2 days and getting one bite. Your time can be spent much better fishing for catfish somewhere else.
Well, sure. People wonder why I drive to, Alabama or Tennessee.
There you go. A couple minutes, my friend. Let's talk a little bit about equipment, rods, reels, and line. And you're saying there's problems finding fishing equipment now?
Yeah, like if you're looking for quality Penn or Shimano reels, you can't find them. And if you do find them, you're going to pay 20% higher than what they were a year ago, just because somebody knows they got them. Now, as far as equipment, I am sponsored by B&M Poles, Vicious fishing line and braid. Obviously, I use Daiichi hooks, so that's the backbone of my gear. I would say if you're fishing for channel catfish, almost any type of medium to medium heavy, spinning rod or a bait casting rod, 8-pound to 20-pound test would be more than enough to get what you need. I like about a 7.5-foot rod.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me lots of leverage to make long casts, and also when I'm setting the hook. Obviously, if you have a 5-foot rod, you don't have as much leverage as you do a longer rod. So, any of that type of equipment is good. Some people like braid. Some people like mono. Depending on the technique I'm using, I use some of each. If I'm back bouncing on the Mississippi, I use braid where I don't have any stretch in the line. If I'm dragging baits where we're trolling baits along the bottom, I like the give and take of the mono in the water. If I'm just anchored out, I will use mono most of the time, but I don't mind using braid. It just depends where I'm in a situation where there's stretch in the line or no stretch in the line.
Well, I think too on that braid. To me, I think braid and bait casters go hand in hand. But we're seeing a lot more people are using braid on their spinning outfits too, aren't they?
Oh, sure, yeah. I use them on my smallmouth rigs, and if I'm depending on what I'm using, if I'm using a crankbait, I'll throw braid. If I'm fishing plastics, say in a Little Miami River or something like that, I'll switch the spool to the mono spool.
Okay.
So I'll just change the spool depending on what I'm using.
Yeah, it's easy to do when you're changing spools, isn't it? Instead of having to grab another rod or whatever.
It just takes a few seconds.
Yep. Good point.
About 1 minute, you can change from one to another.
That is a very good point for people. Very good point. My friend, I want to thank you. Whenever we visit with you, and we visit with you every year. Last year was a lot of rerun stuff, so that's because of virus, and there just wasn't anything going on. But, getting back into the swing of things here in 21, I hope it continues, and I don't see any reason why we're not going to be able to continue. Podcasting has become so popular now, it's just unbelievable. And I have to be honest with you, radio for 27 years, I still like it. I think it's pretty neat because it's on demand, and I think it's got a great future. There's no doubt about that. But let's plan on getting back with you. Why don't we plan on getting back late August, early September? We'll do a little bit of an early getting ready for fall bite. And then we'll continue, as we always do, rapidly going through your tournaments and how you're doing with your tournaments. We'll do that again, and all the way to the end of the year, and then we'll get wrap the whole year up and maybe sing Jingle Bells or something like that.
Well, then you can give me a call about ice fishing, because I love to ice fish.
Okay, then you know how slim pickings have been there, don't you?
Yeah, here locally.
Yeah.
We're due for a hard winter.
Well, I'll tell you what, to me, that's... what the guys should put all of that money into their equipment and everything to do quality guided ice strips, and then not to have a season to do it with that really is not good. Not good at all. But good, we found an ice fishing guy with you.
I bought a brand new graph, big dollar graph 2 years ago. I used it once 2 winters ago, and I used it like twice or 3 times this year. And that was it.
Well, I hope you get to use it a lot more, that's for sure. And, when you look at our closest really good place to ice fish is probably Indian Lake. And, they didn't have much of a season there. Great sockeye bite in the winter up there. And they haven't had a good one up there for a couple of years either. So, fingers crossed, toes crossed. People that enjoy it, I hope they get to do it. There's no question about that. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Good luck on the mighty Mississippi. I hope you win. How's that?
Yeah. Well, that makes 2 of us.
Well, there's a lot more than 2. A lot more than 2 hoping you win. So good luck. Safe travels, too.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care. There you go, Mark Blauvelt, West Virginia Blue Cat record holder, off to an event on the Mississippi, and we'll visit with Mark. We'll get that update from him. A preview of fall bike. We'll do that with him late August, early September, to get an idea of what the hell the fall looks. And hey, I'm glad you mentioned ice fishing. We could use an ice fishing guy here locally to talk with about ice fishing. Hope we get to have a season. Don't forget, if it's Thursday, like Sidney says, it's fishing and hunting today, and we thank you for listening and tuning in. If you have friends that enjoy the outdoors, tell them to do the same. A bunch of segments are out there now, so take a listen to those, and we update and do a new one every Thursday at 8 p.m. on Thursday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern. So we hope you enjoy. Hope you continue listening. Introduce others to it, and we'll continue to do them because we love doing them. Sidney does a great job putting them together, and we thank him for that as always. Till next week, get out and enjoy the outdoors. We'll see you then.